Hello, this is Gail DeLuca at White Fox Beads in Knoxville, Tennessee. And today I'm going to be showing you how to stitch a project called Demure Duos. We're going to be using mini duos and size 15 seed beads. And I thought I would record this little introduction just so you could see the face behind the voice, because mostly what you're going to see is my hands walking you through the steps of this project. This project is great for beginners because it is super easy to start, but if you're an experienced beader, you're going to appreciate how super easy it is to start. So let's pause while I change the camera angle, and I'll be back with you where you can see my hands and we'll get started. Okay, we are back and we have it nice and zoomed in, so you're going to be able to see everything I do. And so we're going to start out talking about the supplies. I love to use Fireline, and today I'm going to be using this 6-pound smoke Fireline. And well, might as well just do this right now. We're going to measure off about 4 feet, which is what the pattern calls for. And this is what the pattern looks like. If you feel like you want to pick this up on our Etsy store, you can. But this is so easy that a lot of folks aren't going to need that reference. You'll be able to figure it out from just watching this cool video. So the pattern calls to use a 4-foot length of thread. If I'm using Fireline, 4 feet is just fine. If you're not, you might want to go longer. Fireline is just really, really easy to add thread, so I don't stress about going super long. 4 feet can be a wingspan. If you're just guesstimating, I don't expect people, when I say 4 feet, that's a ballpark figure, just at least 4 feet. And I don't really expect you to sit there with a ruler and measure out 4 feet. So I'm just gonna bring this over outside of the camera view, and I'm gonna measure a wingspan off. And a wingspan is if I hold one end in one hand and the spool in the other, and I spread my arms wide like wings. That's a wingspan. So my wingspan is anywhere between 4 and 5 feet. And the scissors that I'm going to be using to cut the Fireline are these little Fisker scissors that we carry in the shop, and they're great for getting a nice sharp cut. Depth perception issues when you're looking through a camera lens. Oh, that's hilarious. Now, this isn't going to thread through the needle because the Fireline itself at this point is round, and the slit of the needle is not round. It's very narrow. So a lot of times what I will do is with my Fireline, I'm going to take these pliers here and get a little bit of a grip, and then just grip it and pull, and you can really see how flat that makes the Fireline. That's going to make it a lot easier to thread in our needle. I'm going to set that aside. And the next thing up is our needles. And, oh, I should show you what we're going to be working on. This is the project. So it's not really that wide. I've let it wrap around my wrist twice. So you can make this as, you can make it 2 wraps, 3 wraps, 1 wrap. You get about 2 wraps out of a small tube of the mini duos. So that's what I'm wearing. We're not going to do these colors. I'm going to do some that might be easier to see on camera. And then I've just put a little magnetic clasp on here. Sometimes I stitch directly to the clasp, other times I stitch to a jump ring, and then I can change out the clasp if I want to, or if maybe a customer would like a different clasp. But most of the time, everybody loves these magnet clasps because they are so easy to take off and put on, that I really could easily just stitch this right in and have no problem with people wanting to change it out. This one's a little big on me, but that's sure to fit someone I know just perfectly. Okay, so that's the project. That would be helpful to know that, right? Okay, the next thing I need after my Fireline is going to be my needles, and we're going to be using the size 10 beading needles. This is a 25 pack. They also come in 4 packs. So, but you know what's really fun is embroiderers, I read this tip in an embroidery book recently, and like traditional embroidery, not bead embroidery. They recommend starting with a new needle every project. And, you know, I read that and I thought, I don't know any beaders who do that. We all typically work our needles until they're just bent beyond recognition. But ever since I started doing a new needle for every project, it's made my life so much easier. And I seem to have dropped that piece of fire line on the floor, so here we go. I'm gonna show you how to thread that needle. So we did the flattening on the end, and I'm gonna find that end. I am right-handed, so my rule of thumb is I put the needle in my dominant hand, which is my right hand, and then you do what's called bringing the needle to the thread. And what I do is I pinch that thread until I can just no longer see it, or just barely see it. And I'm looking through the lens right now, so you through the camera, so you saw that depth perception issue I had. I'm almost blind at this point because I'm just relying on the camera to show me. But if I'm doing it right, I don't even have to see it. You see that little hint of black right there? You just slip it over and then grab the part like that it went through. It is so easy. You might have trouble the first few times you try it this way, but if you put the needle in your dominant hand and bring the needle to the thread, with a little bit of practice, you're going to get really good at threading beading needles. So we've got that threaded. I've got a little bit of overlap, not too much overlap, because you want to hit that sweet spot between not having the thread slip out all the time and the needle can be sharp on the hole, so it could, if you've got it in the same point all the time, you could like wear down your thread no matter what kind of thread you're using. So I don't like to do the needle, say, halfway down, because then it's going to create a weak point in my beadwork, and we don't want that. So kind of toward the end, I'm going to end up cutting this tail off at some point anyway, so this should be fine. I may show you another little trick later about how to go even shorter and not fall off, but we'll save that for another time. All right, so I've got that threaded. Now at the other end, we don't need a knot. What we're going to do is we're going to add a stop bead. And it's a good idea for your stop bead to be a different color or a different bead than the beads in your project. That way you will know what is your stop bead and you won't get it mixed up with any of your project beads and accidentally include it. So here's another tip. Once you string a bead, put your thumb and finger and hold the bead, hold that bead while you pull your thread all the way through. And I'll show you that later on. Because that way the whole beadwork just won't go flying all over the place. So I've got a real short tail there. I want to leave a longer tail. I want to leave, and the tail is the far end of the thread from the needle end. I want like at least an 8-inch tail. So I'm estimating, again, I'm not measuring. And if you want a good way to eyeball things, like 8 inches is the width of a piece of paper, well, 8.5 inches. 6 inches is a dollar bill. That's another really good reference. But so this part of the thread here is the needle end. So I'm coming around this bead and back up through it. And that is my stop bead. Okay, what this is going to do, it's going to keep the beads that I string next from falling all the way down. It's just going to hold them snug into place while I work with them. Okay, so we've got our fire line cut, our needle threaded, our stop bead in place. Now we're going to talk about our beads a little bit. These are mini duos. These are 2x4 millimeter. They are a 2-hole bead. And these are pressed glass made in the Czech Republic. And we're going to pour a few of these out. Now, when Super Duos first came out, there were a lot of problems with clogged holes. And you really had to be super, super careful about making sure that the holes were clear of any debris, because you could be doing a project and stitching along, and first you add one side of the bead, and then you add a bunch of beads, and then you come back, and when you get to the other side, it's never a good thing to have a clogged hole. But their manufacturing has vastly improved since these beads first came to market, maybe 5 years ago-ish. And I rarely have a problem, but it's still a good idea to just kind of look at the holes, and you can kind of glance and see that both of those holes are clear. So you want to check. I used to go through like a whole tube of beads and go through and poke every hole and then cull out the bad ones and set those aside, because sometimes you can get the debris out. But anyway, so we're going to continue. We're going to string 2 mini duos, and then the other bead in this project is a size 15 seed beads. These are Miyuki number 401. 401 is black. That's in the bead world, that's a color number that you learn very quickly, because so many people buy it. I've reordered it like a gazillion times. Some of the colors I have memorized, some not so much. Okay, and now we're going to do a size 15 and another duo. So I'm going to turn this around so you can see. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these off the needle and slide them all the way down to my stop bead. Okay, there you go. So I've got my stop bead on the left. I've got 2 mini duos, 1 size 15 seed bead, and 1 mini duo. So I've already got thread going through one of the 2 holes of each duo. The next step that I want to do is I'm going to look at the very first one that I strung, which is the one that's going to be right next to the stop bead. I want to stitch through the empty hole. The second hole is the empty hole. I want to stitch through the empty hole there. And there again, to make sure that my thread doesn't get tangled and the beads don't go flying around, to hold it, I'm just going to put my thumb over that. Because once you put your needle in place, you don't need to see what it's doing. It's in the right spot. And then I'm just going to pull. It's about to get caught on a pin, sitting out of camera. And I'm just going to pull. And what's really cool right now is these beads just pop into place. Look at that. And my stop bead slid down a little bit, which is okay. I don't really need it that much right now. And then the next step is you're going to pick up or string a seed bead and a mini duo. And if you look at where the thread is coming out on this side, you're going to stitch in this direction through the empty hole, the second hole of this duo right here. So we're working from end to end. The tail is the beginning. We're building length in this direction. So that's the bead you want to stitch into. And I'm going to stitch through that bead. Again, I can put my finger over it. I can hold it between my thumb and my finger. I'm used to just holding my beadwork, so I'm just going to pick it up and hold it like that while I pull that thread all the way through, and that just pops right into place. Guess what we do next? Same thing. We're going to string a 15 and a mini duo. Okay, so now our thread is on the bottom, so we're going to stitch this way. And really, there's only one place that your needle can go at this point. There's only one empty hole at this end, and that's what we're going to stitch through. Again, holding the beads, because once I put my needle in there, I don't have to see it. And they just keep falling into place. So guys, this is it. you just repeat a 15 in a mini duo. And now I'm going in this direction, but really it's the only hole that I can go to, and you just keep doing that back and forth and back and forth, and you're going to build some length. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing this because sometimes I know I enjoy watching how-to videos on YouTube, and sometimes they go so fast that I really don't have a chance to pause and collect myself before it gets to the next step. So I'm just going to continue stitching and let you all follow along at home. And I can, as I think of tips to give you along the way, I will also do that. One of my tips is whenever you're tightening your thread, you want to pull on the thread in the direction of the hole of the bead that it's coming out of. So you don't want to pull it this way because it's gonna loosen and pull those beads apart. I want to hold the beads, pull the thread in the direction of the hole that it's coming out of, and that's a little tension tip. I'm gonna do the same thing here. Pull through here, holding the beads, pulling in the direction of the hole that the thread is coming out of. And I'm going to keep stitching. I'm going to chat a little bit. Today is March 25th, 26th, 2020. So I'm recording this right in the middle of the coronavirus emergency. So at the moment, the city of Knoxville, Knox County, has asked non-essential businesses to close, and they have given permission to businesses, small retail like mine, to do mail order only. So that's what we're doing. And that's why I talked earlier about having listed some kits on our website. That website is brand new this week. And we're listing things so that we can ship it to people who are stuck at home. And also, as I record this, I have no idea what things are going to be like in a week, 2 weeks, a month. So we're just going to pause and have a little fun stitching because, you know, you can only control what you can control. Everything else is just out of our hands, right? Okay, so I'm stitching and building length, and I've seen folks stop right here with this pattern and just add a clasp at each end and call it done. But when I think about it, there's only one thread kind of holding all of this together. And I sell a lot of my beadwork, and I would not want to sell something that was kind of that. It's still a little bit loosey-goosey. If one of these threads were to catch on something, it could very easily pull apart or break or something. So the next part of this tutorial is going to be to add the clasp once we get to the end. And then we come back and we're going to be running our needle and thread through all these beads again and then adding some more embellishment beads. So it's going to fill in the edge. Like, remember we saw this one? See how the edge is filled in with all size 15 seed beads? So we're going to have black seed beads all along the edge like that. Okay, so I'm going to pause it for just a second and I'll be right back. Okay, so what I needed to do was go and get this little magnet clasp because we're going to pretend that this is done to the length that I want. So you can do a single wrap, you can do 2 wraps, you can do 3, you can do it really long and make this would be a beautiful, beautiful necklace too. So, but for the sake of demonstration, we're going to pretend that I've got the length that I want. And the first thing I want to do is fill in this little spot right here with a few seed beads. So I think 4 is going to work. The original pattern called for an 11 and 3/15 because when you use the regular size duos, you're using 2 different size seed beads. But this is going to work just fine. So I'm going to stitch through the empty hole that's left. And there, I've got just kind of filled that in a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to create a loop that's got the clasp as part of it. So I've got 3 seed beads, woo, very strong. These magnet clasps are fantastic. They're very strong for their size. I'm going to stitch through the clasp and then another 3 seed beads. And you can see I'm coming out of this side of the duo, so I want to circle around and come in the other side. So what we're doing is we're making a loop that circles around that end duo. See how that works? Okay. Now, I have a rule that you have to reinforce, especially with the magnets. You want to reinforce and go through these beads like at least 2 more times. So, because the clasp, wherever you attach the clasp, that's the part on your jewelry that gets the most wear and tear. And make sure that when you go through those beads another time that you also go through the clasp. Don't bypass that. And make sure you go through every bead because sometimes it's easy to miss one. And we're going to do that again. Through the beads, through the clasp. Sorry, let that get off camera. And then okay, so that's 3 times total, and I can feel that starting to get a little tight in there with the thread. So this is going to be about all I can manage. If it gets too tight and you can't get your needle through there, then I recommend you just switch to a smaller needle, like a size 12. So in needles, the bigger the number, the thinner the needle. Okay, so now I'm ready to add our embellishment beads, and we're just going to pick up 3 seed beads, and whoop, getting caught up in our magnet there. Okay, so I'm coming out the very end super duo there, right? Okay, so I've picked up 3 beads, so that's going to fill in this space right here, and I'm going to stitch through the second hole of the same duo and then across to the other side, so I'm coming out the other duo on the other side. Okay. And that sets those 3 beads right into place there. Okay, I'm going to adjust how I hold it a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. We want 3 seed beads, and I'm coming out this hole of the duo, so I want to stitch through the other hole of the same duo and then across to the other side. And pulling my thread through lets those 3 beads fall into place. So you can see where we're starting to create an edge. So same thing, 3 seed beads. I look where my thread is coming out. It's coming out this hole of the duo. I stitch through the other hole of the same duo and across to the other side. And ooh-wee, isn't this fun? It's really starting to come together. 1, 2, 3. stitch through the other hole of the duo that I'm coming out of. Okay. Going there. All right. So there you have it. I don't think I need to continue demonstrating this to finish. I just want you to get a good start, and you're just going to continue in that manner and add a clasp on the other end pretty much the same way that we added it to this end. So you're just going to keep stitching until you get to the other end. If you need to add thread, then add some thread, but I'm pretty sure that 4 feet of thread is going to get you through a 2-wrap bracelet. So if I remember right, if not, then you can always add thread if you need it. And as always, if you have questions, leave a comment. I will try and answer your question in a timely manner, although I'm doing a little bit of social distancing these days because it's, too much of it is not a good thing. It's driving us crazy. Anyway, but that's all I have, and I hope you enjoyed the project, and look in the notes for links to where you can purchase some of these beautiful beads. Thanks.